Yellow. A lot of people often wonder about whether or not the way fighters approach and act during a face-off is indicative of who might win the fight. While it is highly unlikely that a face-off in and of itself will have any direct bearing on the outcome, the body language and other nonverbal as well as verbal cues of fighters during the face-off may give us an idea of their emotions and mindset as they approach their opponent and the contest. Thus, it may provide some clues about the possibilities. In this video, we are going to apply such an analysis to the face-offs of the main card of UFC 260, and we will do so as objectively as possible in hopes that we may find out and be able to tell who may or may not have such psychological advantage. So thank you for joining us in this endeavor.
Hello and welcome. It's your favorite sociologist on the greatest MMA channel. Started out with a little homage to Mindsmash, who oftentimes has some juicy content, so please check him out. And thank you now for checking us out, because we've got some really juicy content looking at the body language and nonverbal cues evident in the face-offs of UFC 260. So without further ado, let's hop to it. The first bout on the main card is going to be Jamie Mullarkey versus Comma Worthy. And when I hear Comma Worthy, I always think of a sentence that needs some extra punctuation. Sentence is really worthy of a comma. It's comma worthy. So anyway, corny jokes aside, here we go. So we've got Comma approaching, shakes hand, steps to it, comes in, he reached a bit far forward with his hand, but then after that reach, he was the one that stepped forward and put his fists up, and Comma has his hands down. Now, it's really hard to tell, and there's a few of these bouts where the fighters still wore their masks, and it's just, there's dozens and dozens and dozens of muscles in the face, and facial expressions probably tell us the most. So we can't look at that now. We're forced to look at other cues to see just what we could be getting. Now, their blink rate is pretty much normal. Nobody seems to have a higher blink rate going on. The only big difference is Comma's got his hands down while Mullarkey has his hands up. And he doesn't have them closed up front. He just has sort of a casual pose. And I wouldn't doubt that both of these poses are something that the fighters thought about. I'm just going to stand with my hands down or whatnot when they were getting ready to do this particular face-off. Mullarkey kind of wobbles himself just a little bit, but they both stare. I don't think Comma even blinks. They nod, sort of that agreement of, are you done? And then what's interesting is the pose. Comma does a full flex, whereas Mullarkey clasps his hands like that, and he's got them in front of his junk. Now, when people put their hands in front of their junk, since he's got a clasp and a hang, it's not exactly a fig leaf, but body language experts will oftentimes refer to it as a fig leaf when somebody kind of has their hand there and it's sort of a protective indication. He's not doing that exactly, but he does have his hands closed and he's got them in front of himself. So that seems to say that Comma Worthy is the one who's being more extroverted, boisterous, and a little more out there in this face-off. Coming up next, we have Jillian Robertson and Miranda Maverick. And this one I found really interesting for a couple of reasons. Okay, so she walks up, fixing her hair, and boom. Has her hands in her pockets, but moves forward and is looking right at her. Now, what exactly is it with her hands in her pockets? Is she just that sure of herself? Was that a planned tactic? Is she leaving them there because she doesn't feel confident enough to bring them out and to move stuff around with them? What exactly is that saying? But she does move in it. And now, hands down, hands up. What I find interesting is when the face-off is done. Now, watch this. Okay, they touch them on the back here, and she moves back, shakes her hand first. She puts out the hand to shake, and then drops her head almost like a bow nod out of respect, and she looks to get right off the stage. Like she seems to want to really buzz off the stage in a hurry, but then realizes that she's got to do, oh, I've got to take the picture. Boom. And they both put up the same pose, except she has her hand still in her pocket. But you can tell that she has a genuine smile. You can see the little crow's feet forming near the eyes, getting a little squinty. So that is a genuine smile on her part. And again, she looks very, very quick. Oh, which way? That way? What? Well, just very, very anxious to get off the stage is what I pick up on that one. Coming up next, we have Sean O'Malley and Thomas Almeida. And this one's great because they actually take their masks off. Almeida walks up with a fist bump, takes his mask off, immediately puts it in his pocket. Now, see, when O'Malley's walking up, he had his chin up, which I've talked about before. That chin up is a sign of the power and the control and the hierarchy maintenance in there. He's feeling confident. And with his chin up, when he steps in, he immediately starts looking down at Almeida. Now look over here at the masseter muscles on Thomas. He is going to be clenching those. It's like false mastication is what it's called. Fake chewing is what that means. And that is often a sign of anger or anxiousness, one or the other. So he's definitely got that going on. And we can kind of guess what that is when he gives us another sign a little bit later. Look at him flexing that. So then he sort of like gives a little nod as Sean O'Malley is maintaining a stone face and just staring down at him. He's looking at him and it seems that he feels uncomfortable and has to do something or move somewhere. So first he nods his head and then he just raises his lip and shows that smile of teeth, but it's not a real smile. It's a fake smile. You can't see any of the wrinkles near his eyes. Now that is sometimes showing teeth could be like an aggressive indication, but oftentimes flash smiles in those circumstances when we seem a little bit nervous about things, seems to sort of like what's the word I'm looking for? To dispel the tight energy in the situation, to diffuse the hostility, so to speak. So he's got that smile, and you can see when he starts to back away, look at the way that O'Malley is still like a split second forward here, and he's like leaning forward, still staring down at him as he's turning away with that smile on his face. So O'Malley kept looking at him, kept down a bit further. He goes out, flexes first. They're both flexing, and Almeida maintains that sort of upper lip smile, and then both of them turn and walk away. So it looked to me like Almeida sort of reacted a little with a little more nerves, a little bit more anxiety to that face-off. Coming up next, we've got Tyron Woodley and Vicente Luque. This is about that I'm looking forward to. Should be fighting as hard as humanly possible in this one because it could be Woodley's last fight if he doesn't win it. Okay, as we saw, Luque gets up there. He's ready, stands a little bit back. Woodley's walking up, walks right into it. Both raise their hands, step right into it. And again, they got their faces covered, so it's really hard to tell. There's no difference in blink rate. They're not even like wobbling differently. They've got the same darn pose. They break. Luque's the one that nods. He does a little bouncing on the flex, but that's it. And then they both drop and walk off. Very, very simple. Not a whole heck of a lot going on in that one. And finally, the main event face-off between Stipe Miocic and Francis Ngannou. So over here, Francis Ngannou approaches, and he not only does the handshake with this guy, you can see he'll then pat him on the shoulder, which is a little sign of dominance there. And look, as he turns, you see the way Francis licked his lips. That is a lip licking that to me looks like a sign of anticipation. People lick their lips when they're really looking forward to and anticipating something. Same thing with rubbing your hands. It really gives a sign that you can't wait for what's going to be going on. And Francis seemed to have one of those types of lip licking moments. You can also see he's almost, it looks to me like he's almost trying to suppress a smile. I have to take a look, see if that's just his facial structure with some of the muscles here and the way he's holding his mouth, but he just got through with that. So that's that. Now, Stipe reached forward. He had a pretty good distance between himself and Francis with that handshake. And then he breaks that distance after the shake and stands there, and Francis is the one to actually move in. But then they strike their pose. They're looking at each other with the same pose. And these guys just have an absolute stone-faced stare at each other. They blink a couple times, but not much, not even flinching, really. Actually, they didn't blink at all on that. Now, Francis nods at him when he's done. I find this part really interesting as well, is, oh, they can't get off stage. They're going the wrong way. Francis looks that way, and Stipe then gestures, and Francis goes like, oh, and then he gestures that way. So mimicking what Stipe did with his hand, he could have just turned and walked that way, but mimicking that, it's almost a reaction that people often do. And sometimes when you're mimicking somebody else, it sort of shows that you're kind of on the same page as them, trying to let them know oftentimes. But what I see out of that is just two guys that have a lot of respect for each other and are ready to go at it. That was such a stony face-off. Couldn't get much out of either of their expressions. They didn't break eye contact. They didn't even flinch. They had the same darn pose. And then that very polite exchange between the two of them when they were walking off a stage. So both guys are sure of themselves, confident, and ready to go as far as I could tell in that main event. So that looks to me like it is going to be an awesome fight. The one that I picked up kind of the most nervousness and awkwardness out of was Almeida in the O'Malley fight. And there was that awkward thing in the female fight as well between Anderson and Maverick. So not Anderson, Robertson. It's got a son at the end of it. I apologize. That's a Megan. Nonetheless, thank you so much for tuning in. Appreciate your time. I'd like to know your thoughts, so please put them in the comments section, and hope to see you in another video. So please click like and subscribe, and we'll see you for another body language breakdown, either after some walk-ins or maybe definitely when we have another face-off. Thank you so much. Check out some other videos on this channel, and hope to see you again soon. Take care. Bye-bye. Good luck, everyone.